Welcome to my screencast on reinventing project-based learning, your field guide to real-world projects in the digital age. Today we will go over chapters 3, 4, and 5 in brief. Welcome to chapter 3. Imagining the possibilities with project-based learning. So the first thing that we want to think of with project-based learning would be what is the big deal, what is the big idea behind project-based learning and the projects that we are presenting to our kids? Are they going to walk away with a skill that they will be able to hold on to, or is it going to be something that's just meaningless? Are our students going to be tested rigorously, or is it just going to be a worksheet? So again, what is the big idea? We're asking ourselves, why are we really doing this project? How is it going to be impactful and both meaningful to our students? One of the things, the second point in chapter 3 that I took down was the relevance to the real world around us. I think sometimes with teaching, a lot of the times we get kind of caught up with worksheets, and the bad part about that is it just becomes another piece of paper to the students, and worksheets I feel like have really lost all meaning. So with project-based learning, how is this important, and how are they going to carry the skills that they learn in project-based learning out into the real world? And again, so some of those skills are those benefits of project-based learning are definitely being able to collaborate and work with others appropriately, sharing, and then those critical thinking skills. One of the things it said in this chapter was, don't be afraid, and not in these exact words, but don't be afraid to trot onto new territory, or allow your students to think outside the box. Or, I know if you start with one project or one idea in mind, if it leads students in another direction, it's okay. They are finding self-discovery, and at the end of the day, self-discovery is so much more meaningful than really a piece of paper or a worksheet. So definitely there are a lot of benefits to the project-based learning. Again, with project-based learning, students learn to become critical thinkers, which is, at the end of the day, we do want to see all of our students being able to think from themselves. When we're constantly just handing them work, we are not testing them rigorously or allowing them to think outside the box, or we are not allowing them to show us what they are capable of. So project-based learning does definitely open the doors to so many different channels. And again, at the end of the day, when those kids are able to self-discover, it does become more meaningful. So again, the three things that I took out of this chapter was what is the big idea? And with project-based learning, and why are we doing this? Project-based, the number 2 would be project-based learning's relevance to the real world, and those skills that children need, like the critical thinking, self-discovery, building skills, and then who is going to care? If it's unmeaningful, will our students be engaged? If it's something that is meaningful, they will care and they will take an interest in it. So that, in a nutshell, was my chapter 3. Stay tuned for chapter 4. Welcome back, reinventing project-based learning, chapter 4. The title of this chapter, as you can see on the screen, is Strategies for Discovery. The main idea there, it was really hard. There was just, I know I kind of ramble a lot, but there's just so much information that I tried to narrow down. So what I figured the main idea was selecting and building projects. And then with that in mind, what learning concepts do we want to cover? How are these going to help our students become independent learners? And will the students master rigorous content? So those are the main things that I really pulled out of this chapter. This chapter also talked about, most of the chapter talked about, like, what are the students getting out of this project? Kind of a lot of what we talked about in chapter 3. And then, are they able to make important connections? And again, with the project-based learning, we want to see those connections being made. So definitely chapter 4 in a nutshell. Stay tuned for chapter 5. Thank you. Reinventing Project-Based Learning, Chapter 5. The title of this chapter is Making Assessments Meaningful. I truly liked how this chapter was laid out. I thought it was very insightful. So some of the things that I learned in this chapter, again, in brief, there was a lot of information that was presented and a lot of different strategies definitely that I learned. So number 1 with project-based learning, authentic assessment is key. Students will not get the same results as they do with project-based learning, such as the self-discovery, the making connections, the critical thinking, the higher levels of rigor, with standardized tests. So definitely, when you're thinking of assessments, be very authentic with them. That is definitely something that was talked about in this chapter, and I know it's really big on our page right here, authentic assessments and project-based learning. So, to start your road on how to assess, we are going to start with summative assessments. The reason this chapter said that we want to start with summative assessments is because when we are thinking of building those projects, we are not thinking of the first step first. We are thinking of, when I create this project, what do I want my kids to know at the end? So this chapter really pushed, we are starting with the kind of assessment that we're going to do at the end, and that's what we want, and that's how we're going to assess our student. Once we know what we want our students to do, or what the main key is at the end of this project, or what we want our students to know at the end of this project, then it says you can circle back around to plan, or circle back to the beginning to plan your project and to reach the goal from there. I thought that was really insightful, because most of the time when I'm guilty, most of the time when I'm thinking of planning, I do start with step 1. Okay, what is my standard? How am I going to teach it first? I don't think about, at the end of this unit or at the end of this project, what do I want my kids to know? And then start there and then circle my way around. So I did think that was very meaningful. So again, that's one way that you can definitely make your assessments meaningful. That's what I walked away with from this chapter. Thank you for listening. I hope this was insightful or a little bit helpful. Have a great evening.